Welcome to C-Files, folks. Thanks for watching. Turn that down so there's not background noise. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you want to get notification of these videos. And let me explain my channel for just a moment before we get into the subject. This channel, to help you understand it, because some people might be a little confused as to what in the world I'm trying to do on this channel. We are probably the most educated society in history. Okay, that might shock some of you, but it's true. And we have the highest technology of any society in history. But the thing that we lack the most is wisdom. We have a severe deficit among many people in our society when it comes to true wisdom. And that's what this channel is about. Trying to, through reason, logic, biblical proverbs and biblical concepts and so forth, to educate and impart wisdom to my audience, and to kind of challenge us to be better when it comes to understanding the wisdom of God and how do we apply that to our lives. And that plays into current events and things that happen in current events. So that's the purpose behind this channel at this point in time. That's really what I'm focused on. If you'll notice, I've been, even in the shorts that I'm doing, I've been addressing proverbs out of the Bible and so forth, and trying to impart little nuggets of understanding when it comes to, the one who created this universe is telling us this is how things should be, this is how things should function. These are the consequences for certain actions and certain attitudes and heart conditions. And these are the things that will bring blessing, So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to impart. And that in itself is controversial. It really rubs like sandpaper against, I guess, what you could call human wisdom, which is not really wisdom. God calls it foolishness. And yet, in 1 Corinthians it says that, Christ is a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Greeks. Well, who were the Greeks? The Greeks were the educated, sophisticated crowd of the first century, right? They were the philosophers. They were the thinkers. They were the academics. And the cross of Christ to them was foolishness. It's no different today. Many academics today see the cross of Christ as foolishness. So there's something that's happening in our culture, and we'll get on beyond talking about the purpose of the channel now into the subject. There's something happening in our culture today that has created a subculture, albeit probably a small percentage of people, but still, it's a subculture of our society that is radicalized. And we see this in the school shootings, we see this in the church shootings, we see this with assassination attempts, we see this with the shooting just this week of Charlie Kirk. There's a radicalization. And if you've paid any attention to the young man that carried out that attack, you know that he was radicalized. He believed that he was ridding the world of evil. Now, this is cultic thinking. You have to understand this. This subculture that is radicalized is cultic in nature. And if you understand a cult, one of the first things they do is they isolate you, and then they surround you with their cult ideology or religious concepts. They don't allow free discourse. You have to follow the doctrine of that cult explicitly. And you're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to challenge the doctrines of the cult. They cut you off from family and friends. And they convince you of the core concepts of the cult, the doctrines, the moral concepts, the idea of, a cult is us against the world type of thing. And, usually that's how religious cults work. And you pretty much have to deprogram people, mentally deprogram them to bring them out of a cult, because the programming, the mental psychological programming is so effective on their mind. Well, this subculture that is radicalized toward violence rather than discourse, that's everything that I see in it points to all of the major factors that would define a cult. Isolation, radicalization, by mental conditioning. There's a discourse is not allowed. These type of things. So that's why the comment that I heard this week from one commentator that said, "We bring words, they bring bullets." It's because they don't believe in discourse. The discourse is to threaten the doctrines of the cult. And so they can't have that. So what is the command of the cult in the subculture of violence? It is, if they disagree with our cult, our doctrine of our cult, our political doctrine of our cult in this case, then you bring violence to them. Attack them on the streets. We're going to take it to the streets. Attack them on the streets. Surround them in the restaurants, and make them pay for their inherent evil. Those type of things. Even to the point of using deadly force to, quote, shut us up, end quote. So if we're outside of the cult, then we're the evil, and we have to be shut up, we have to be eliminated, we have to be physically attacked. This is Antifa. This is the young man that carried out the shooting this week. This is the man who attacked the woman on the trolley train in Charlotte. It's cultic. And so I classify, for example, critical race theory as a political and religious cult that is intolerant of discourse. And that's the reason for the realization of we bring words, they bring bullets. It's interesting that the anti-Second Amendment crowd, and that's a part of the cult, brings bullets. How does that work? Well, it's because the bullet in the hands of those who are outside of the cult, well, that's evil. But the bullet in the hands of the cult member, that's justification. That's bringing justice to the evil that is outside of the cult. That's how it works. The scripture talks about those who are inherently prone toward violence. If you read the book of Proverbs, it does talk about that. You see, psychopaths have been around for thousands of years. People who have no empathy, they have no feelings, they're very stoic and psychopathic, and they are capable of taking a life and having no emotion, no feelings, no remorse. That state of mind, that condition of the heart among a subculture of people inside of a culture has been around for thousands of years. You can read about people like that in the Bible. They've been around a very, very long time. And that is what we're dealing with when we're dealing with school shootings, church shootings, attempted assassinations, successful assassinations, things of this nature. That's the type of mentality, the condition of the heart that we're actually dealing with. You know, when I was a young police officer, my very first year working, I was with San Diego Police Department at that time, working municipal policing in the city of San Diego, and there was a police officer that was on our squad. He was not a partner with me in a car, but he was on our squad. And he brought out, back then it was like a tape recording that, you know, you'd put a tape in and like a cassette tape and put it in, and I'm kind of giving away my age on this one, but yeah, he pressed play and you can hear it. And he played a audio of a psychopath. And he says, since I was brand new in the police department, he says, I want you to understand, he told me, and I had a partner with me, so there was three of us there. He says, I want you to understand some of the type of people that you're actually dealing with out here as you're doing traffic stops, as you're, getting to check the welfare calls, as you're going in on active burglaries, as you're going in on armed robberies, things like that, and you're responding to those things. He goes, I want you to understand who these people, some of these people are. So he plays this comments made by this psychopath. And folks, it was my first reality check concerning some of the types of people that we have in this world. And it was chilling to hear what this psychopath was saying. No remorse, no regard for human life, almost robotic in nature. Just like the guy that killed the young woman on the train in Charlotte he was, by clear definition, psychopathic. No remorse, no feelings. Like, oh, but that, check that off the list of things I need to do today. Now let's go find something to eat. That's a psychopath. That's a perfect example of what we're talking about. And so police officers deal with these type of people from time to time. I arrested a guy for homicide who was psychopathic. This homicide was horrific. And it was one of those cases where this homicide suspect just basically fell right into my lap. And I'm going, wow, that was a stroke of, that had to be God's providence. I mean, just how in the world did this guy just fall into my lap this way? But the circumstances began with a radio call, which was totally unrelated to this homicide suspect. And the end result of that totally unrelated radio call was that I came across this homicide suspect by a series of circumstances within that radio call, and he just fell right in my lap, and he was in handcuffs in the back of my car. I took several bladed kitchen-sized knives off of him. The homicide that he committed was committed with a knife, so I'm throwing weapons on the hood of my police car and hooking him up, and sending a PD detectives roll up, and they look at me and they say, hold on a second, officer. They go, look at the homicide suspect, and they go, what's your name? And he told them his name. And they looked at me and they go, go ahead and put him in the back of your car, officer. He goes, that's a homicide suspect that we've been looking for. They had been staking out that area looking for that guy, trying to catch him, and I'm the one that comes on a totally unrelated radio call and catches this guy. It's pretty funny how circumstances like that work out. I was happy to get him off the streets. But he was a clear psychopath. Had no remorse. Like Lecter Hannibal, right? Okay, let's go and do this dastardly deed, and then we'll go have something to eat afterwards and just enjoy a good meal, like it's nothing, like it's just another day during the week, right? That's a psychopath, and there are people that are like that out there, and so you have to be aware of that. That sometimes that's who you're dealing with, and so it's okay to be nice to people. It's okay to be kind. It's okay to be generous. I have no problem with that. That's a part of being a good, human being. That's a part of being a Christian. Love your neighbor as yourself, Christ said. But when it comes to wisdom, you want to guard against being naive when you're dealing with people. And one of the things I've seen, especially with Christians, because they are so tender-hearted, is that they tend sometimes to be naive when it comes to dealing with people. One of the things that people get upset with the Republican Party about, or these Republican Party elected officials, is that they get that tender heart, and then they do something really naive, or say something naive, or when they're talking about someone who's truly just nasty, a nasty, mean, nasty individual, they want to give this person the benefit of the doubt. They want to, extend a hand of dialogue to them and so forth. And people get angry and upset because they're going, hey, this guy is not interested in dialoguing with you. He wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy your party. He wants to destroy your ideology. He wants to destroy your Christianity. And you want to extend a hand to him and be nice and sweet. And that's what people see. And I think sometimes the Republican elected officials they're not catching on to that. They're not understanding that. Because there is a level of naivety involved there. When you're dealing with a psychopath, you have to deal with them differently than you do any other normal human being. Most people in society are willing to sit down and have a conversation. Most people are willing to deal with you in a civil discourse. Okay? That's the vast majority of our society. There is a small subculture, however, that would rather do horrible things to you. I'm trying to be family friendly here on YouTube. That would rather do horrific and horrible things to you than to say hi back when you say hi. They're not interested in discourse. They're not interested in the conversation. They're not interested in trying to come up with a compromise. They're not interested in trying to see your side of the story. They're not interested in any sympathy or empathy for someone like who passed away this week or their family. No, their only interest is to destroy you. And that is their goal, their purpose, and their means. And they could care less about anything else. And there are people in elected office in our federal government that are exactly like that. All you gotta do is go on X and see the montage of, you can go on my page on X. I've got a video on my page, Jeff Claiborne on X, CLAIBORNE on X. And you can watch a video on there of Democrat politicians that one after the other, are calling for violence against MAGA supporters, Trump supporters. I mean, violence, horrific violence. Calling for the destruction of any ideology that is outside of the cult. And then you have these kind-hearted politicians that go in there and try to have a dialogue, and they try to extend a hand of, grace and kindness. And what do they get in return? They get a right cross across the head, or they get a bullet. Why? Well, because you're dealing with people, they're not interested in having a dialogue with you. Their only interest is to destroy you. So that's where we have to stop being naive. And that's where wisdom comes in. It's okay to be kind. It's okay to be generous. It's okay to love your neighbor. But not in a state of being naive to where you don't understand who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a psychopath, if you're dealing with someone who's inside the cult and is brainwashed, you're going to have to deal with them in a different way. The reason I'm not a Democrat is because the Democratic Party does not reflect my Christian values. That's the reason. So there you go. Just a little bit of wisdom from our Creator and the the scriptures. Read the book of Proverbs. There's 31 of them. You can take one each day of the month and read it. Like today is the 13th of September. So, along with my other reading schedule in my Bible, I read Proverbs 13. Tomorrow's the 14th. I will read Proverbs 14 tomorrow, and so forth. And I gain wisdom. You can too. God bless. I'll see you next time on the C-Files.